The year is 757 AD. The Weald is a massive, freezing expanse of dense forest separating the southern kingdoms of early England. Sigeberht, the reigning king of Wessex, is moving through the freezing underbrush when he is violently dragged into the shadows. His attacker drives a seax, a heavy, single-edged Anglo-Saxon blade, into his body. The strike is deliberate and lethal. The accepted historical account tells us that Sigeberht was ambushed by a local swineherd, acting out of a random desire for personal revenge. Accepting this as a tragic accident requires us to ignore the precise, brutal mechanics of 8th century politics. To reach this terminal point in the mud, Sigeberht had to first be stripped of every legal and military protection he once commanded as king. To successfully remove a king in this era, his rivals had to methodically dismantle his immunities and strip away his physical protections, layer by layer. To see how this process actually worked, we have to rewind the clock and examine the constitutional machinery of early English statecraft. That machinery did not operate in the woods. It operated in the imposing stone halls of the kingdom's elite. 19th century historians romanticized the King's Council, the Witan, as a peaceful, democratic parliament. In reality, it was a volatile, ad hoc gathering of heavily armed stakeholders. This map illustrates the power structure of Wessex. The true brokers were the ealdormen, provincial warlords commanding distinct regional armies. The Cyning possessed no standing national army. As these lines show, his force relied entirely on keeping those warlords satisfied. Sigeberht ruled for only a year before making a fatal miscalculation. He attempted to bypass the Witan, seizing lands and acting unilaterally without their consent. A rival noble, Cynewulf, recognized the opening. He stepped in to leverage the growing aristocratic grievance and organize a hostile bloc. Cynewulf bought allegiances using land promises and physical wealth, like the silver minted into these quatrefoil designs. With his coalition secured, Cynewulf executed a rare constitutional maneuver. The bloc formally accused Sigeberht of unlawful acts to justify a coup. A deposition in 757 was a visceral event. It meant scarred magnates physically surrounding the king in a torchlit hall, stripping his royal regalia. The Witan provided the legal framework necessary to execute a coup d'état whenever a king threatened the local monopoly of his warlords. Sigeberht was not killed or fully exiled immediately. His rivals opted to demote him. Returning to the map, Sigeberht's central authority is erased. He is reduced to the status of an alderman, confined entirely to the isolated province of Hampshire. He retained a small, localized power base, but he lost the national immunity that came with the crown. He was completely exposed. To tighten the snare, Cynewulf and the Witan installed another ealdorman, a man named Cumbra, right alongside him in Hampshire. Cumbra was not sent as a loyal retainer. He was an overseer, specifically positioned to act as Cynewulf's spy, reporting on the former king's movements. Sigeberht was trapped. Under extreme isolation and constant surveillance, his mental state rapidly deteriorated. He finally snapped. Sigeberht violently turned on Cumbra and murdered him. Killing his overseer was the reaction of a cornered man, a desperate strike against the surveillance strangling his remaining influence. By committing an impulsive murder, Sigeberht handed Cynewulf the exact legal pretext the Witan needed to finish the purge. Stripping a king of his crown merely takes his title, strategically boxing him into an escalating state of paranoia until he commits a capital crime, is how you legally remove his right to live. In response to Cumbra's murder, the Witan issued their final verdict. Sigeberht was permanently stripped of Hampshire and driven out. Desperate, he fled into the Weald, a hostile geographic void separating the kingdoms of Wessex, Kent, and Sussex. Sigeberht was officially cast into the legal status of outlawry. In early England, entering the forest as an outlaw meant the total erasure of your legal protection. You could be killed on sight. Which brings us back to the assassination. The man bleeding in the forest is no longer a reigning king. He is a hunted target. The official chronicles insist the assassin was a low-status swineherd seeking vengeance for his master, Cumbra. Sigeberht was an elite, highly trained warrior. the logistical probability of a lone peasant executing a flawless, lethal ambush against him is exceptionally low. Blaming a swineherd provided state-sanctioned plausible deniability. It neatly insulated Cynewulf from the direct guilt of regicide. Cynewulf also had macro-political cover. This hierarchy shows King Ethelbald of Mercia, the dominant power pressing down on Wessex. Ethelbald likely sanctioned the hit to keep his southern neighbor permanently destabilized. Cynewulf achieved total regime change, used the Witan for legal cover, the forest for physical erasure, and permanently eliminated a rival claimant. This cycle of aristocratic violence was baked into the very structure of West Saxon governance. 3 decades later, in 786, Sigeberht's brother, Cynewulf, emerged from his own exile. He launched a brutal surprise attack on Cynewulf, driving a blade into him and starting the cycle anew. In the Anglo-Saxon Heptarchy, the Witan's legal framework only formalized what was ultimately decided by blades in the dark. Violent paranoia was the true engine of